Welcome to the channel, English Epics. I was in an excellent mood. I had just acquired a business I had been involved with for a long time, and it had taken considerable effort. Some of my actions had been underhanded, deceitful, and borderline illegal, but I got away with it. This was supposed to impress my dad. The next day, when I arrived at the office, I was still riding that high, and when I walked into my office, my father told me how his day had gone. There was nothing unusual about it, until I received an email from my lawyer, asking me to contact him immediately. There was an attachment. Curiosity got the better of me, and I opened it. It's official. Hell is frozen. Today, the town of Hell, Idaho, is completely covered in ice. A severe ice storm hit the area last night, leaving everything coated in a thick layer of ice. Only large four-wheel drive vehicles with reliable chains can move through the streets. The mayor has declared a state of emergency. Until further notice, only police or emergency vehicles are allowed on the roads. If you need emergency assistance, please call the hotline we have established. Emergency shelters have been opened in local schools, and anyone in need of refuge should contact the police department. The forecasted highs for the next several days are around 20 degrees, and at night the temperature may drop to freezing. So, no thaw is expected for at least a week. Stay tuned to KRBX for further updates. I called Ben. I read the article. Do we need to make a donation to the relief fund? That's always a good idea from a public relations standpoint, he said. But that's not why I called. Do you remember your divorce? Wow, that brought back memories. That jerk had the audacity to cheat on me. Apparently, he didn't care about being caught. He didn't even try to hide it. We were not getting along, and looking back, I realize I spent too much time at the inn, not enough time on the marriage. But that doesn't excuse infidelity. After the divorce, I was emotionally scorched earth. And surprisingly, considering my worth, he didn't put up much of a fight. In the end, I gave him the house, his cars, half the checks and savings at the time. But he didn't get a piece of my trust fund. We came from old money, and we worked hard to grow it, so that was significant. Due to the infidelity clause in our prenup, he could only get 10%, but that still amounted to many millions. The only thing he asked for was the chance to talk to me for an hour. But I was so angry, I resisted with everything I had. In the end, I handed his lawyer a notarized contract stating that I would speak to him when hell freezes over, and not a minute sooner. Eventually, he stopped trying. But he kept the documents. Now, 5 years later, it seems like it's come back to bite me in the ass. Seriously, he knows it has no legal standing, and that I never referred to a physical location. Anyone with a shred of common sense would understand that. But the fact that you didn't specify which hell, even though you were speaking metaphorically, undermines that assumption. He's got a pretty good lawyer, and he's pushing hard. His attorney told me it would be in your best interest to talk to him, saying he could put you in a very uncomfortable position if you refuse. It's been 5 years, it's over. What can he possibly do? Well, for starters, he could sue you for breach of contract. He might win, he might not, but your name will be splashed across the headlines for days. The media will have a field day. Paparazzi will hound you relentlessly, not to mention what the major outlets will do. There are plenty of news agencies that aren't exactly fond of your father. Do you think they'll pass up a golden opportunity like this? They'll dig so deep into your company's ass, you'll feel them in your throat. I paused for a moment to think about it. We weren't exactly popular right now, and this could hurt the business. Throw a couple million at him, Ben, and make it go away. He sighed. All right, but you need to remember, money doesn't seem to matter much to him. He could have taken a much tougher stance during the divorce, and you would have ended up paying him a lot more than you did. Just try. Okay, you're paying me, but you're also paying for my advice, and my advice is that this might not go the way you think. Goodbye, Jasmine, goodbye, Uncle Ben. Tell Alice I'm expecting her next month for our shopping trip. He chuckled, but it was a dry laugh. Shopping trip is a bit of an understatement. I think she spends half our annual income on those outings. Well, then it's a damn good thing you're a top-tier lawyer worth millions. Bring me good news. I'll talk to you soon, Pumpkin. Have fun on your trip. He filed a lawsuit for breach of contract. $50 million. Normally, I'd laugh at something like that, but he hired Aubrey Melton. If you need a shark, I'll do just fine. But if you want a megalodon, you hire her. This could get very ugly, very fast. I didn't catch on right away. What the hell are you talking about, Uncle Ben? Your ex. He filed the suit in the local jurisdiction. You'll have to go there and appear in court. Not that I planned on dignifying this nonsense, but where exactly is there? North Carolina. I let out a loud sigh. The land of tobacco and cousin love. Not in a million years. He was silent for a moment. I don't want to dwell on this, but you don't have a choice. I can fight it, stall for as long as I can, but sooner or later, we're going to end up in front of some old school judge. A real Foghorn Leghorn type, and then things will go downhill fast. Who the hell is Foghorn Leghorn? There was another long pause. God, I'm getting old. Never mind, sweetheart. The point is, you're going to have to be a grown woman, put on your big girl panties, and talk to him. I giggled. Big girl panties. You really are getting old. Just stall, as long as possible, and maybe he'll just give up. The odds of that happening are about the same as me suddenly growing a full head of hair after 40 years of baldness. He waited 5 years to catch you on a technicality. Do you really think he's going to quit now? I knew my ex, or at least I thought I did. What I remembered most about him was his stubbornness, especially when he believed he was right. Keeping that in mind, I made a decision. Drag it out for another 3 months, then settle it. That didn't happen. Eventually, he got in touch with an old-school judge who, according to him, told Ben Bryan, "Make sure she knows I'm done playing games. If her ass isn't in that courtroom in 3 weeks, I'll issue a bench warrant for failure to appear and push for her extradition. Make sure she understands that, counselor." I stood my ground and cancelled the court appearance. 2 days later, a very uncomfortable police officer showed up at the office and gave me a choice. I could come voluntarily, or he'd cuff me and escort me out of the building like a criminal. I asked my assistant to call Ben and got into the officer's car. He apologized at least 10 times. Since my company was a major player in the city, and eventually I told him to relax. I get it, it's your job. You've treated me fairly, and I don't hold it against you. He even held the door open for me as we entered the city jail. They didn't lock me up. They put me in their best interview room and offered me all sorts of refreshments. Ben showed up 20 minutes later, looking grim. "Thank God," I said, standing up. "Let's gather my things and get out of here." He looked at me for a full minute, and the expression on his face said it all. "Would you mind sitting down, sweetheart? We're going to be here for a while. You failed to appear in court, and they're demanding your extradition. Typically, it takes representatives from any jurisdiction 3 to 4 days to come get you, sometimes a week. Usually, they don't release people in your situation before trial. After all, if you were supposed to appear and didn't, the odds are pretty high you won't show up the next time either." I started to panic. Damn my stubborn ex-husband, he never gives up, especially when he thinks he's right. Set a date and bring him here. He shook his head. "That might have worked 9 months ago, it won't work now. You've pissed off the wrong people, rural folks who've never heard of you and couldn't care less about your wealth. This time, Mountain, you've got to go to Muhammad, on his terms. Tomorrow, you'll appear before the judge for arraignment, and you'd better do your best to earn his sympathy and make promises you can actually keep when you speak to him. I'm confident I can get you out, but it's going to cost a lot. Have you told your father what's going on?" I cringed, remembering that conversation. My father hated my husband the entire time we were together, mostly because the family didn't impress him, and he made it very clear he didn't care about my husband's opinions. One time, he told him he'd be a fool to go through with a plan to acquire a rival company he was involved with. So my father bought it out of spite. It turned out to be the worst decision of his career, and it cost him dearly. Eric never said anything about it, but he smirked every time the topic came up in the news or in the papers, and eventually, that started to drive me crazy. It seemed to bother him far less than I expected, which made me rethink the entire dynamic of our relationship. It was very, very difficult for me not to dominate every relationship I was in, and while he never tried to intimidate me, he made it damn clear that we were partners. And if I didn't feel the same way, I should take steps to end it. That scared me to death, because I really did love him. Right up until I found out he had cheated on me. Funny how quickly I went from loving wife to furious bitch, but it just hit me. The audacity he had to cheat on me. I was magnificent, built like a Greek goddess, with a brilliant mind to match. Maybe my face didn't launch 1,000 ships, but it definitely broke a few noses when guys walked into doors and walls staring at me and the woman he cheated with. Sure, she had a nice body, but her face was average at best. I gave him everything, including sexually. I insisted we make love, or at least have sex at least 4 times a week. Granted, it had to fit into my schedule, and it drove him absolutely nuts that 4 times out of 5, I'd stop him after he started. I did that, first of all, because my intense schedule required me to manage my time precisely, and second, because it reinforced who held the power in our relationship. Sometimes I wondered if that constant control over our sex life was what drove him into someone else's arms. But she was a nobody. She had no money, no prospects. No nothing. And yet he still walked away from his marriage for her. What struck me as even stranger was that after the divorce, he didn't pursue her any further. Instead, he sold the house and disappeared for about 4 months. He came back and took a position at a new startup located in the Research Triangle, doing who knows what. It must have been successful because a regional magazine wrote an article about him and his partners for their achievements. Not that I was keeping tabs on him. I heard that a couple of years later, he got remarried. I briefly considered sending her a copy of our divorce papers and maybe a few photos. But I decided against it. Besides, I was engaged to a nice young man my father genuinely approved of. He worshipped the ground I walked on and had absolutely no backbone. It was a match made in heaven. That night, I stayed at the police station, and one of the officers brought in several thick quilted blankets and soft pillows. The door was left unlocked, and they even gave me a laptop in case I wanted to get some work done. They provided an interrogation room for me to use as an office. The next morning, I graciously thanked them for their kindness and donated $10,000 to their summer sports program that I appeared before the judge. And although he was polite, he made it clear that I was expected to honor the contract, or I would be sent back to jail, this time to the County Court of General Jurisdiction, until he decided to let me out. "You have 1 week to resolve this," he said, "or you're going back." "Understood." Ben earnestly assured him that I would comply and, just in case, made me post a $250,000 cash bond. Money I would immediately forfeit if I didn't follow through. I shivered as we walked out of the courtroom, and Uncle Ben kissed me on the cheek and said, "Make sure you show up to that meeting. You don't even have to be polite to him, but you do have to spend an hour talking. Try to keep things casual and minimize the arguing. Don't make me come drag you back from the sunny South." I boarded the company's smallest jet and landed at Raleigh Airport at 9 a.m. Far too late for a Saturday. With me were my personal assistant, makeup artist, and hairstylist, just to remind him what he'd lost. It was a 90-minute drive to his house, and I was incredibly annoyed that I had to go there at all. I tried to book a small conference room at one of the local convention centers, but he flatly refused, and the judge sided with him. "It took him over 5 years, and an act of God and nature, to get you here," the judge said. "So we're going to do this on his terms." At the very least, I enjoyed the drive. I made sure to have a Mustang convertible, and if it weren't for my hair getting all messed up, I wouldn't have put the top up at all. Maybe on the way back, after about 40 minutes, the city streets gave way to rural countryside, mostly farmland, and wooded hills. It was peaceful and pastoral, and I couldn't help but compare it to my apartment on the 25th floor. The penthouse. Yes, the views were breathtaking, but you were so far above everything else, it felt like looking out from an airplane. The GPS guided me to a long winding driveway that ended at a large house, old-looking, with a huge front and back porch. I was surprised to find it was actually quite modern, barely 4 years old. When I got out, no one came to greet me, and the first thing I noticed was the smell. It was clean, filled with the scent of flowers and plants from the beds near the porch. It reminded me of my grandmother's house when I was 5 or 6 years old. In fact, I didn't have an official appointment. He had simply set a time for the afternoon, so I wasn't surprised when no one met me at the door. I was just about to call again when I heard voices, and 2 people came around the corner of the house. One of them was a girl, maybe 13 or 14 years old. I had never really interacted with children, except at company picnics or the annual Christmas parties we threw for employees' kids, so I had no real basis for judgment. I could say she was pretty, past the awkward puppy stage and starting to take on the shape of a young woman, with big green eyes and hair so light it was nearly white. What shocked me, though, was her companion. It was Shane, and he was wearing overalls. He had always dressed impeccably, either in starched jeans and a pullover or a custom-tailored designer suit. I couldn't help but wonder, had he become a farmer now? He and the girl stopped and stared at each other for a second, then he smirked. "Ah, There you are. I stared at him, overwhelmed by a rush of emotions, not because I want to be. That was a pretty low move on your part. Shane, can we please just get this over with so I can go back to my life and forget you exist? His smile didn't waver, and suddenly I remembered how cold and composed he could be in a tense moment. Of course. Then he turned to the girl. Missy, would you bring us a couple of glasses of iced tea? I think we'll sit out on the porch and enjoy the breeze. Yes, daddy. When the hell did that happen? He noticed my confusion and smiled. I got a bonus package when I remarried. Please, have a seat. By the time I caught up, he had already stepped onto the porch and gestured toward a set of cushioned wicker furniture. It turned out to be surprisingly comfortable. The girl came out carrying a tray. Cookies, she said with a smile. I baked them myself. She gave Shane a quick hug and started down the steps, tossing over her shoulder that she was heading to the barn. Then she paused and looked me straight in the eyes. I'm sorry about Grandma Laurel. I really loved her. Laurel, that was my mother's name. I turned to Shane, stunned. What was that about? His expression tightened, and I realized I'd struck a nerve. You have no right to bring that up unless it's absolutely urgent. Shall we begin? He made a whole show of setting a timer on his phone. Did you ever love me? He asked. Or did you just like the idea of me, loyal, devoted, always showing up to your events, someone you could boss around with no consequences? What the hell? Of course I loved you. That's why I was so furious when you cheated on me. You knew it violated the terms of the deal. I couldn't just let you walk away clean. I wasn't trying to avoid anything. It was actually pretty easy to spread the news just enough to make sure it reached you. I felt like my heart was about to explode from the tension. You did it on purpose. You bastard. Did I mean that little to you? For a moment, he looked incredibly sad, just for a second, before that faint smile returned to his face. You meant the world to me throughout our entire marriage, up until the last few months. Did you ever know that woman's name? Claire Houston? I'll never forget the name of that adulterous tramp. And that name never rang a bell for you. No. Why the hell would it? Let me take you back for a second. Does the name Nelson Houston sound familiar? Tall, blonde, handsome, and according to you, could have sex like a machine. He was her husband. Suddenly, my ears started ringing. No one knew. We had been extremely careful. I snapped out of it and went straight to denial, even though I knew I'd already lost. What the hell are you talking about? That name doesn't mean anything to me. He reached across the table and pulled out a folder. Flipping through it, he found what he was looking for, then looked up at me and smirked. Maybe the phrase, sexual monkey, will jog your memory. I have a recording of you calling him that, and I can play it for you. Just give me a second. Tears welled up in my eyes. No one was ever supposed to find out. I thought we had covered our tracks well. I exhaled. So, she was his wife. Yes, and I'd still be a blind fool, in love with you, if she hadn't come to me. You were very discreet, but he wasn't. He bragged about sleeping with you like it was some kind of badge of honor among business partners. At first, no one believed him, so he took pictures. There might still be a video online somewhere, of you pleasuring him. Maybe I should ask Uncle Ben to take a look at it. Your face is clearly visible in the video. Again, I have a copy, if you ever want to relive the experience. I didn't exactly faint, but I blacked out for a few seconds. When I came back to my senses, I saw the expression on his face. He didn't look triumphant or pleased. In fact, he looked genuinely heartbroken. Then he pulled himself together, and despite my brain screaming at me not to do it, I started babbling. It's not what you think. I never meant to hurt you, and I tried so hard to keep it separate from us. It only happened once or twice, and then I came to my senses. I almost confessed because the guilt was unbearable, and even though I knew you'd forgive me, I couldn't bear the thought of being the one who hurt you. He looked back down at the folder. According to the reports, it went on for at least 9 months, and I used your money to get the best investigators out there, and yet, even knowing I would have forgiven you, you didn't show me the same grace when my affair came to light. He was never supposed to know. Never. Then he pulled out another folder and flipped through it. You started seeing him less than 3 months after breaking things off with Charles Goodnight. He claimed to be a direct descendant of the legendary cowboy, and wore that ridiculous cowboy hat everywhere. What was your favorite position with him? How did that little romance end? Things get a bit hazy toward the end, and frankly, I realized I didn't care enough to find out. I felt weak. How much did he know? He opened another folder. You were sleeping with Yoshi Yamato the entire time you were in Japan negotiating that deal for your father's company. That took international relations to a whole new level. Before that, it was Barclay Hughes, but that was the first time after we got married. So I asked the investigators to stop digging. No one knows how many people you slept with while we were dating. Finally, I got a spark of reaction. So you brought me all the way out here just to rub my nose in everything I've done. Were you hoping we might somehow reconcile? His expression changed, and he looked like he might be sick. Honestly, I don't think that would ever happen, even if hell froze over again. No, right now, I just feel sorry for you. You've never had a real relationship with anyone, except maybe your father. You've never experienced true love between a man and his wife. And honestly, I don't think you're capable of it. You lied to me, Jasmine. All the time we were together, you kept lying, and kept saying everything was fine. Actually, I set a Johnny Lang song as your ringtone, just to remind myself. No, this isn't some awkward attempt on my part to interfere or rekindle anything. Maybe, just maybe, it's my way of trying, for once, to see you for who you really are. I don't think it'll work, but I made a promise to try. He paused, and just as I opened my mouth to speak, he continued. I assume you're engaged again, to a man you mercilessly control. Are you still tormenting him, or have you trained him well enough that he no longer cares? Here's something to think about. Every person has a breaking point. Sometimes it takes decades to reach it, but it will come. Sooner or later, he'll be done, and he'll walk away, without caring whether he gets your money or not. Remember this. Even rabbits will kick and claw when they're trapped with no way out. His words hit me harder than I expected, but I pulled myself together. Well, then you can forget whatever promise you made to yourself. You've spoken to me, voiced your opinion, given advice that you know I won't take. Am I free to go now? He looked at his phone and sighed. You still owe me 8 minutes, but you're right, we're done. I'd tell you to be a better person, but that would be a waste of breath. Go back to your world, where the only thing that matters is what you want, and enjoy it. He stood up, sliding the folders toward me. Here, you can take these. I only kept them so you'd know I wasn't entirely the man you thought I was. And one more thing. That promise wasn't made to me, but to the person who once meant the world to me. I would have written you off long ago, believing you were hopeless. If not for that, I'd be more than happy to forget you ever existed. And who was the promise made to? Then, his expression turned cold. Time's up, you can go now. He turned and walked back into the house, leaving me standing on the porch. It took me a few minutes to collect myself, then I stood, grabbed the folders from the table, and walked to my car. I was halfway to the highway when I saw a young girl on horseback in a nearby pasture, and something about her seemed familiar. I stopped and waited as she rode over to me. She just sat there silently, and finally, I broke the silence. That horse looks familiar. She smiled, lost in thought. That's because he should. Sir Prancing Horse was your mother's last horse. She sent him here 5 months before she passed, because she wanted me to have him. How did you know? She tugged the reins, and the Silver Arabian responded instantly, breaking into a gallop as she rode off. She shouted over her shoulder, "Don't come back." And then she was gone. I watched her disappear into the distance for a moment before returning to my car. Later, on the plane, I was unusually quiet, and everyone around me gave me space, letting me stay lost in my thoughts. My mother had loved Shane, and she was devastated when it came out that he had cheated on me. She was furious with him during the divorce, but sometime afterward, she just stopped mentioning him. Except to express sadness about not having grandchildren, and now I find out she gave her horse to his supposed stepdaughter. The more I thought about it, the more I realized I needed answers. When I got home, I discovered I no longer had his email address, but it wasn't hard to track him down through his office. I sent him a message saying we needed to talk one more time. His lawyer replied, saying that his client agreed, under the same terms as before. What exactly does that mean? I asked. Ben gave me a sad smile. It means, sweetheart, you'll have to wait until hell freezes over again. Transcribed by TurboScribe.ai. Go unlimited to remove this message.